foul that was called on Asia Wilson.
Yeah, you can see Kelsey Mitchell right there get Wilson in the
WNBA.
We just witnessed a masterclass in complete anarchy from the WNBA. There is constantly new video and commentary about Kelsey Mitchell, yelling at the referees and even a Wilson. To be honest, it was among the shadiest, most manipulated games you'll ever come across. We're discussing outrageous technicals and cheap fouls. Indiana just wasn't meant to make it through it. But here's the thing, they totally changed the script. Do you believe that Vegas is currently in a panic? The Aces expected a coronation as they entered their home stadium, right? The MVP award was polished for them. The press was prepared to celebrate. Additionally, the script was essentially written. Wilson was expected to just rule. It was expected that Becky Hammond would outsmart Indiana. Additionally, it seems that the referees were meant to handle things in Vegas' advantage. Rather, the evening became a complete catastrophe. Their own haughtiness, some extremely careless play, and to be honest, some of the worst officiating I've ever seen in a playoff game all contributed to the complete collapse.
Talk about this really quick. One of the moments in the game that showed blatant inconsistency, right? And just showed, hey, y'all be paying attention to what y'all want to pay attention to, all right, in the WNBA.
Look.
Nobody would call what happened to Kelsey Mitchell a technical foul at any level of basketball. She makes contact during a drive, takes an arm over her body, completes the play, and is penalized rather than awarded the free throws she was due.
Why?
Due to the whistle's apparent one-way operation. Additionally, it seems that the rules simply alter if Wilson is on the floor. That was the night's central topic. Las Vegas is held to a very different standard than Indiana. With the exception of playing excellent basketball, the Aces gave it their all. You name it. Flops, forearms, elbows, etc. They had no intention of winning in a clean manner. All they were doing was bullying. However, Indiana didn't blink, which was the issue. They were unfazed by the whistles or those low-cost shots. They simply tensed up, performed their routines, and disciplined Vegas whenever they became distracted.
A part of what people are tired of, man. Tired of the inconsistencies. And the favoritism that y'all show certain teams with certain jerseys on, man. It's crazy.
You could tell right away that the temperature wasn't frightening. Kelsey Mitchell disclosed, by attacking Belli nonstop. When the Aces slumped off, she simply punished them after forcing them to collapse. On both ends, Odyssey Sims was a complete bulldog, preventing Jackie Young or Chelsea Gray from ever becoming at ease. Brianna Turner and Aaliyah Boston rotated flawlessly. They forced Wilson into fadeaways and hotly fought hooks by cutting off any of her effortless post-game looks. Not only that, the Fever were surviving in the outdoors. They were controlling the game's tempo. Vegas, meanwhile, appeared completely shaken. This was identical. Club that, only days earlier, was boasting that they were the true Aces. And all of a sudden, they were totally disoriented. They didn't receive any of the anticipated foul calls. Instead of adapting, they simply melted down, and each flop seemed more phony than the one before it. Wilson, who had just received her MVP award, retaliated by hurling elbows, yelling at the referees, and attempting shots that simply clattered over the rim. She shot 6 for 22 by the end of the evening. MVP figures are not even close. Let's now discuss the fouls in more detail.
How does the body feel at this time of the year, given all that you in particular have gone through and are always on the floor?
I'm a little sore, I'm not gonna lie. It's catching up to me, but we're gonna just keep getting warm, keep going out there, try to forget about the pain a little bit. But that's the part of the year. That's everyone. Everyone's playing with a little bit of bumps and bruises, and again, you just kind of forget about that in playoffs.
Man, Lexi Hall was pushed, elbowed, and knocked to the ground all night long. The screens weren't merely forbidden. These moves were almost on par with those of the WWE. Players tripped her by leaning their shoulders, sticking out their hips, and extending their legs. Whistle after whistle, however, remained silent. The referees simply allowed it to occur. Here's the problem, though. Hall didn't complain. Instead, she strengthened her defense. She forced Jackie Young to move east to west rather than north to south, making her life utterly unpleasant with every item. Hall had one of the top plus-minuses on the floor by the last buzzer. Then came the point that encapsulated the whole thing. After driving to the edge and making touch with Wilson, Kelsey Mitchell completes the bucket, and all of a sudden Mitchell is given a technical by the referees. Mitchell, not Wilson, and not the Aces. It went beyond parody at that point. Not even Vegas fans believed it. Officiating was not what that was. It was theater at its best. The ball doesn't lie, despite a last-ditch effort to shift the momentum back to the home team. Indiana buried jumpers, and Vegas missed free throws. Karma arrived before the authorities could hide their traces. Mitchell was making a statement in addition to scoring goals. The Vegas throng fell silent with each bucket. Each and every. Their haughtiness was transformed into sheer terror by the three-pointer. She finished the evening with 34 points and a perfect score. Command of the game. Just cold-blooded shot-making without any justifications or bailout whistles. Odyssey Sims combined that vigor with the poise of an experienced professional. When necessary, she paused the game. When Vegas was reeling, she hurried it up. Natasha Howard blocked second-choice shots and just bodied larger players inside, fighting as if her career depended on it. Additionally, Wilson had to earn every point the hard way thanks to Brianna Turner. No free spins, no easy catches, just disciplined, physical defense that is constant. It was anticipated that Indiana will fold. 6 players were absent after all. Caitlin Clark was out. Sophie Cunningham is not available. Their bench was smaller than ever, and Sydney Carlson was sidelined. They were dismissed by analysts before to the tip. Critics referred to it as a mismatch. Indiana hadn't seen the genuine aces, according to Becky Hampton herself. Translation: the fever rolled over Vegas instead of rolling over, which was supposed to be an easy sweep. In contrast, the Aces demonstrated their true fragility. They simply don't know what to do when Wilson isn't providing them with 40-point nights. Flashes happened to Chelsea Gray. Jackie Young fired a few shots, but Indiana wouldn't budge, so it didn't matter. And after Wilson was sent off with a foul difficulty, Vegas entirely collapsed. In a matter of minutes, a 3-point game became a 14-point disadvantage. That's dependency, not championship basketball. Then there is the spin job that Becky Hampton did after the game. When asked about her team's difficulties, she dismissed them as missed opportunities and layups. It went beyond simple denial. It was disrespectfully indolent. In each and every phase, the Fever outperformed her squad. They shot better, played cleaner, and defended more forcefully. This was not misfortune. Indiana was just plain superior. However, Hammond was unable to acknowledge it. She couldn't claim that Aaliyah Boston outperformed her MVP. She chose to hide behind platitudes since she was unable to acknowledge that Lexi Hall and Odyssey Sims had clamped her veterans. In contrast, the atmosphere in the Fever locker room was quite different. Kelsey Mitchell didn't hold back when speaking. Although she acknowledged Vegas's skill and showed respect where credit was due, she made it plain that Indiana had come to compete, and they weren't going anywhere. The comments weren't tirades of rage. They were confident, well-controlled shots across the. She pointed out all of the absurdity without complaining, highlighting the ways in which her squad battled despite poor officiating and dirty play. And that's what gave the evening its poetic quality. The headlines, the buzz, and the hardware were all in Vegas. Indiana was rugged, hardy, and unwilling to back down. As the game came to a close, the scoreboard read, Fever 89, Aces 73. The 6th seed, whom everyone disregarded, humbled the expected powerhouse on MVP night on their own court. This is Vegas isn't really interested in hearing this. 72% of teams who win Game 1 advance in best-of-5 series. That implies it wasn't just a triumph for Indiana. They changed the series' overall odds. What was meant to be a coronation was transformed into a major crisis by them. The irony of the entire evening is nearly unbearable. A'ja Wilson, the league's golden child, the face of women's basketball, was pictured smiling with her MVP trophy hours before. She was hailed as unstoppable and unbeatable. After a few hours, she was missing half of the team's lineup, throwing elbows and pleading with the referees to save her from a fever team. The alleged coronation was actually shame, because when the PR machine and all the hype are removed, what occurs on the court is what matters most. Additionally, the fever was better, sharper, more hungry, and most importantly, fearless on the court.
Consider Boston, Aaliyah.
Although she doesn't receive as much attention as Wilson, she delivered a brilliant defensive performance. Boston Turner and Howard never allowed Wilson a footing, allowing her to go 6 for 22 from the field. Each post was challenged. Each rotation was accompanied by a wall. There was a hand in her face for each fadeaway. Wilson was faltering rather than taking charge, and the contrast couldn't be clearer. Wilson simply broke down into flops and frustration, but Boston carried herself with composure and control. Next up is Lexi Hall once more. Although she may not have completed the stat sheet, she spent the entire night making Jackie Young unhappy. Each cut was rejected. Every jumper was put to the test. Each drive was closed off. Her number, plus 24 plus minus, sums everything up. While Wilson and Vegas whimpered, Hall was the stealthy killer doing the grunt labor. You could actually see how much it rattled the aces if you paid careful attention. Vegas believed that intimidation would be effective. They believed that Indiana would lose their rhythm if they shoved Jay and flopped. Rather, it completely backfired. The contempt fueled the fever. Each and every hard foul lit another spark. They were much more tense with each false whistle. At night's end, Indiana was grinning while Vegas appeared to be the underdog, pleading for pity. And that's the main point of this. Vegas has been labeled the WNBA's dynasty, correct? Multiple titles, star power, all the hoopla in the world. But when one guy has a bad game, dynasties don't fall apart. Dynasties change. Dynasties win in different ways. We didn't witness a dynasty. Wilson was carrying them in a house of cards. They are immediately visible if you take her out of sync. Indiana, meanwhile, is demonstrating what team basketball looks like. Kelsey Mitchell was producing as well as scoring. It was easy for her to find Turner. Bucket. She kicked open shooters and attracted defenders. Like a seasoned performer who has been waiting her entire career for this moment, she managed the tempo. When Vegas attempted to lure Indiana into anarchy, Sims added that steady hand, calming things down. Even the character Shaw Petty used airborne powers to bring sparks at the appropriate times, and Howard fought like a warrior in the game. The fever is not anything that anyone likes to play. They're dangerous because they have nothing to lose, in addition to being attractive. Everything to benefit from. Their opponents are playing with dread, while they are playing freely. Furthermore, we must not overlook the referees. The officiating of this game was a complete failure. Like sweets, technical fouls were distributed. Screens that moved were disregarded. Flops received a reward. They referred to blatant schvies as nothing. The referees appeared to be operating from two distinct manuals, one each for Indiana and Vegas. The kicker is this, though. Despite all of that bullshit, Indiana prevailed. That's how. They were far superior. They defeated the Stripes in addition to the Aces. And for that reason, Kelsey Mitchell's post-game remarks were really powerful.
She didn't whine.
She didn't cry. She recognized Vegas's skill. Wilson's resume was respected, but she made it plain that Indiana was not going to back down. She referred to it as such. Indiana demonstrated their belongingness by playing harder and wanting it more. She had just lost 34 points to the league's supposedly greatest defense, so her remarks were really significant. The pressure now entirely changes. The reigning champions, the Vegas, are considering on their own floor, going down too. There is no pressure there. Panic is what that is. They have been made public. They're one-dimensional. Dependency on Wilson is clearly clear. Their defense isn't as good as the advertisement. They are not as composed as the media suggested. Additionally, this series may end before it even returns to Indianapolis if Indiana plays with the same vigor in Game 2. The hilarious aspect is that all of the commentators who disregarded Indiana prior to the series are now frantically revising their opinions. The fever wasn't intended to matter prior to Game 1. Suddenly, following the first game, everyone wants to discuss Mitchell's leadership and the perseverance of Indiana. When reality hits, it's incredible how quickly the story shifts. The alleged specialists in the face. However, the reality is known by supporters. All year long, the Fever have been accumulating to this point. They have experienced disrespect, injury, and ongoing doubts regarding their eligibility for the playoffs. They now need 2 more victories to go to the finals. It isn't hype. It's not luck. It's earned. In the meantime, Vegas must now respond to some extremely awkward inquiries. Will they succeed if Wilson doesn't go nuclear? Is Becky Hammond able to make changes rather than only offering excuses? When it counts most, can their alleged depth really deliver? Because all we've witnessed thus far is a squad disintegrating under duress. Those issues do not exist in Indiana. They are well aware of who they are. They are aware that Boston serves as the anchor, Sims as the steady hand, Mitchell as the closer, and the role players provide the spark. They empower and trust one another, which is precisely why they are prospering while everyone else thought they would fail. The Aces may yet claw their way back by the end of the series, but nonetheless, Game 1 revealed the indisputable, the truth. Vegas is not impenetrable. The referees aren't perfect, and Wilson isn't perfect either. The state of Indiana demonstrated how heart, fortitude, and poise can completely change the course of events. The message is therefore quite clear to the WNBA, the fans, and all of those so-called experts. The Fever has arrived. They're not afraid. They're not going to fold. Additionally, all of that dynasty talk will seem absurd when the 6th seed is the one celebrating in the finals if Vegas doesn't quickly work anything out. The Aces believed that this would be simple. Rather, Kelsey Mitchell and the Fever entered their home, humiliated A.A. Wilson, exposed the referees, and totally turned the series upside down. With 2 more victories, Indiana might really surprise the